Okay, now it has started. Okay, we can start this particular class today. We are in a process to understand the second law of thermodynamics, and we have gone till we have already discussed those Kelvin-Planck statements, thermal efficiencies of heat engines. We talked about heat engines, heat reservoirs. Clausius statement we have also talked about. Refrigerators we have seen. Heat pumps also we have seen that it is nothing but it's kind of a refrigerator, but its aim is different. Its aim is to heat up the space, not cool up the required space. So it's basically same. And Clausius statement we have seen and its equivalence. Those statements are essentially equal. Today we are going to seek to learn few more topics which is essential to understand second law of thermodynamics. And the first thing we are going to discuss is perpetual motion machines. So these machines are nothing but these are the devices that violates first and second laws of thermodynamics. What does it mean violates? First law. So the first law violation is all about there is no conservation of energy is happening. There is no conservation of energy. And in second law, what is the violation? You are talking about a machine with efficiency 100%. So these two things. So if you seek that device has no conservation of energy, you will say that, so this is the perpetual motion machine that violates first law. And if your machine is having 100% efficiency showing, and you will tell that this machine violates my second law. And this first law violation, if that machine, that device violates the first law of thermodynamics by creating energy, is called perpetual motion machine of first kind. This is the good proper keyword we usually follow. PPM1, sorry, PMM1, perpetual motion machine of first kind. In this particular figure, you can see we have a steam power plant that is through there are pump, boilers, turbines, and condensers. There are typical 4 components are there, and generator is used to generate the electricity. So electricity is being generated. But what one student, let's suppose one student X has come to me and he told that, sir, what we will do is we can, whatever the electricity that is being generated, we can, without putting heat to the boiler, without giving some heat to the boiler from the high temperature side, we can actually take some electrical energy and we can feed through this resistance heater to boil your water. Okay, and everything seems to be fine, except that when we draw a system boundary, so this QH is not there. Instead of that, I'm putting the electrical energy. So can somebody state that what's wrong with this device and whether it will work or not? Somebody comment on this. Yes. Anybody? Nobody? Chirag Karotara? Jagdishan Pillai? Anybody?
No idea, sir. Sir, can you explain again what you are asking?
Okay, so I'll explain it now again. So your typical steam power plant constitutes a pump that pumps uh, the fluid to the boiler, and boiler takes up some heat from furnace, and this is steam is being generated and given to the turbine, some sort of turbine, and which rotates and which gives a work output. And again this uh, steam, the low pressure steam, is being passed through condenser, and the heat is being liberated to the outside environment, and again you will add the same thermodynamic states and cycle proceeds. But here some student X has told that, sir, this Q heat which we are giving to the system or to the boiler, let's not do that. What we should do is to take the work out of it from the turbine and put it in generator. We can generate the electricity, and this electricity again is being fed to some resistance heater to boil your water. So whether this claim of this student is valid or not in terms of conservation of energy. So actually this student is not uh, he is doing a mistake. Why? When I am choosing my system boundary, you can see this is my system boundary, and in this system boundary you have this work out that is happening, and you have one Q out that is happening, and there is no work or any form of energy that is taken by this system. Okay, so in short you are telling that without gaining any without taking help of any energy, you are basically getting some useful work and some Q heat outside the system. It means you are telling that without Q in is 0, and you are getting work plus Q out, right? So Q in basically without putting any effort, you are getting some work and some heat output. So that is impossible since it is violating my first law. Okay, this machine is not possible since without energy, this machine runs indefinitely, but that is not possible. Okay, and it certainly violates my first law of thermodynamics. So this machine would not work at all. Okay, people, what since 1700, since the beginning of these uh, useful devices, people have started patenting, filing patents regarding that they have invented something that is actually giving some work output without inputting any energy. So that claim is unnecessary, and nowadays what it is in the research community or in the scientific community, they are actually not taking these sort of patents which clearly violates your first law of thermodynamics. So even if you design something which has no energy input and it is giving some output of energy, but if you look closely, you will find some form of energy that is being inputted. Otherwise, the machine will not work. Okay. So my student Y then comes, and he claims that, sir, what I do this time, Q in will be there. Okay, W out will be there, but there won't be any condenser. We will not put any condenser. So there is no Q out that is coming out of the system. So now you can see your energy is being balanced. Something is coming in and something is going out. Okay. Now what is the problem with this device? Can somebody tell me? Anybody? This is crucial to understand second law. Kunal? Mayur? Nageshwar? Anybody? Miriam?
Sir, can you show this that image
Yes, this is the image. Some student Y has told
that
that without condenser can we do this, and without valid this second first law of thermodynamics is actually valid because some Q is inputting in our system. This is my system boundary, and some workout
the
Yes,
is
sir.
pump
working.
will
Huh.
Sir, in this
the
the
pump
Q
will
is
emit some heat.
What?
The pump will emit some heat. It will be a type of energy, I guess.
You are not audible clearly. Anybody else?
sir in this the whatever the heat is transferred, it is directly converted into work, the entire heat. So
Yes.
it will not sir, it will violate the rule that we learned yesterday.
Exactly.
Actually, sir, I forgot
Second
the
law.
name.
Second law. It is violating second law.
Yes,
Why?
sir. And
All your
also,
heat
sir,
is
that
being converted to the work, 100%
yeah,
efficiency. Very nice. Who is this?
sir, Rome.
Oh, okay. I was expecting you. Good. Thank you. So we can see that in this form of particular device, so all the heat is being you are getting as a workout. That is not possible. No machine can give you 100% efficiency. So in some sense, or in alternative sense, you will have only one reservoir, that is one source. There are no sink. You should have something. Without sink, no machine will work in cyclic manner. Okay, so this is, although it is not violating first law, but it is violating second law of thermodynamics. So this sort of device that violates the second law of thermodynamics is called perpetual motion machine of second kind PPMM2. Usually, interviewers may ask these kind of questions in your interviews or in your placement examination or in GATE. Next thing we are going to talk about is a reversible and irreversible processes, and that is also important uh, phenomena to understand the process, in what manner the process is happening. And let's first call this reversible process. The reversible process is defined as a process that can be reversed without leaving any trace on surrounding. What does it mean? Let's discuss here. So let's suppose you have a surface and you have a moving body, and you are pushing this body, let's suppose m mass body, in some direction. Okay, and there is a friction between this mass and this surface. Okay, so because of this friction, the heat, because of this friction, some heat generates, and it is liberated to the surrounding. Okay, now who's this? Please mute. Okay, so from going from 1 to 2, so this mass, if let's suppose it has come here, and from going from 1 to 2, it has generated some amount of heat to the surrounding. So surrounding got some damage in thermodynamic sense, in loose some thermodynamic sense, you can say your surrounding got some damage in terms of heat. It takes away some heat. Okay, but while reversing this phenomena, while going back from 2 to 1 again, it doesn't happen that heat uh, absorbs towards the surface and everything comes down to the state 1 again. It doesn't happen. Okay, that we know. So in this process, we can see even if your system, if you consider this mass as a system, comes to state 1, okay, mass comes to state 1, but your damage has been done to the surrounding. So this kind of process is called irreversible process. So reversible process are defined as the process that can be reversed without leaving traces on any either surrounding or system, both. Okay, so neither it has done damage to your system or the surrounding, both. Okay, so sometimes people confuse with, okay, my system came again from 1 to 2 and 2 to 1, it came again to 1 and everything is fine. But no, if you look carefully, your surrounding environment, either your atmosphere or your lake or anything, your surrounding, whatever you are considering, this is, if you consider this as a system, so except this system, everything is surrounding. So surrounding will have some sort of damage in loose sense, some damage. Thermodynamically, it will have some. It will not be at the same state. Okay, you can say in precisely. So it has some. It has gone to some state, and this surrounding has also to come to the same state. Then only it will be told that your system, your process is reversible. Okay, so one example of, so there are several examples of irreversible processes such as friction, unrestrained expansion, heat transfer from a system to surrounding. So friction I have told, unrestrained expansion will also be something like this. You have, let's suppose you have gas in one chamber and this is vacuum, and abruptly this membrane breaks up and gas moves to this particular region. But this is going from state 1 to 2. Now I want to come back to 2 to 1 again. So we can actually do that. Why? By compressing this. So in second time, what you can do, you can compress all these gases to one region. Yes, you can do that, very well do that. But in doing so, you are actually doing some work, and this work has done already damage to your surrounding. Okay, so this is also not a reversible process. Okay, heat transfer from system to surrounding. Let's suppose you have a soda can or your cold drink. Okay, and this is at, let's suppose, 10 degrees C, and you have environment at 25 degrees C. Okay, and now what will happen? The spontaneously what will happen? The heat will flow from higher temperature to lower temperature. Okay, that is how the heat flows, and eventually the temperature rises. Okay, so from process 1, it has gone to 2. Now I want to go back from 2 to 1 again. It means I want to come back to 10 degrees C again. Let's suppose it has been raised till 25 degrees C again, or 20 degrees C in some time. Now I want to come back from 20 to 10 again. Yes, we can do that. Can we do that? Yes, by doing some refrigeration. We have seen that this is what refrigerator does. You can extract your heat from lower side to upper side, higher side, right? Lower temperature to higher side. This is what your refrigerator does. Through refrigeration, we can do that, right? And we can actually go to state 1 for this system. But when we talk about this surrounding, You cannot. Why? Because doing this refrigeration, we actually give some amount of work to the system, and this work came from your surrounding, right? Your surrounding has done some work. Through the surrounding you have done some work, and this has done damage to the your surrounding. So your surrounding can never be at same state again. And this is how heat transfer is spontaneously from system to surrounding is not a reversible process. Inelastic deformation in solids are also irreversible processes. Okay, now we have talked enough about irreversible processes. So processes are not reversible are called irreversible process. So what are those reversible processes? Actually, these processes are ideal processes. This doesn't happen to be in nature. These are idealized. Okay, very ideal. It means there is something called 100% thing. Okay, so reversible processes are actually ideal processes, not real processes. But to understand to understand second law of thermodynamics, the quality of energy, and all sorts of things, we need to understand this reversible process. Why? Because we want to make our devices as close to reversible manner. Okay, why this reversibility thing? Because of this reversible thing, we can get maximum work. I'm not talking that I will get 100%, maximum work out of it. All those sorts of advantages we will have. And second advantage is this will tell you the upper limit of any device. Agree? Are you guys following me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So any example of reversible process that we have come across since our beginning of this course? So remember, we talked about quasi static process or quasi equilibrium.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So all quasi static processes is essentially are reversible processes. Why? We keep a track of, not keep a track of, we try to be, let's suppose I'm pushing a piston, okay, this way. So I'm pushing in that manner towards this way, so that the system adjusts itself throughout homogeneously. So there are intermediately, each and every time you will have a recognizable state of the system. Okay, it's not happening that you are doing it abruptly and you are not allowing your gas molecule to adjust, so that your pressure here is something and your pressure here is something else, something greater. So in quasi equilibrium process, that in some sense it's a reversible process for your system, at least for your system. Okay, we cannot be sure about the surrounding, because we are actually putting some effort to push the piston, and this work is coming from somewhere around from the surrounding, and this does not give the flexibility to the surrounding to achieve the similar phase what it was earlier. Okay, so in some sense reversible processes can be achieved quasi equilibrium for systems. Okay, two things or also I want to talk about is internal and external reversible processes. The process is called internal reversible if no irreversibility occur within the boundaries of the system during the process. So all quasi equilibrium processes can be told as your system internal reversible process. So if you very slowly, if you push this piston and if you consider this as your system, your gas molecule inside it, you can actually tell that yes, it's kind of reversible, internal reversible. A process is called external reversible also. Maybe system is not reversible, but surrounding may be reversible in that case. Okay, so no irreversibility occur outside the system boundary during the process. So one example could be your system is surrounded by a thermal reservoir or a source or a sink. So in that case, no matter how much heat you will take up, or if you go from this way to that way, or any sort of process you will do, your in some sense your surrounding is at almost same temperature. Obviously some damage is there, but almost same temperature if it is your thermal reservoir. So those sort of problems can be tackled as external reversible processes. And if both things are there, it is called total reversible. It's ideal only, it's idealized case, total reversible process. Okay, we are in step 2. Understand that what is my limit or extent to which we can make a device so that we can get the maximum work out of it. Okay, that is what our aim would be since the beginning. In order to do so, I think this researcher called Carnot, yes, Carnot, Sadi Carnot, a French engineer in 1824, called Sadi Carnot. What he told, I will make a hypothetical device or a heat engine. He deduced a hypothetical. It doesn't exist in reality, but hypothetically on paper he showed that if you do some work, you will get the maximum out of it. Okay, how? So what he did, he from process 1 to 2, he chose a piston cylinder arrangement, and hypothetically he told that at process going from 1 to 2, he kept the temperature constant of the system. Temperature was kept constant, and energy source at QH amount of heat is being absorbed by the system in order to expand. So if it absorbs some sort of heat, it expands and it goes from some 1 to state 2. So it goes from 1 to 2, and this is called, and this is done in reversible manner. So this is called a reversible isothermal expansion. So he did something. So in first step, he told that I will go from 1 to 2 reversibly. So reversible, note down that he told reversibly. So this is hypothetical device. Reversible isothermal expansion I will do to that piston. In the second step, I'll go from 2 to 3 by doing the insulation. So what I will do, I will remove this particular energy source and I will replace it with insulation here, and temperature will go from TH to TL, some different temperature from going from 2 to 3. Okay. Now it has come to some TL temperature. Now it will compress again. We will compress it again, and the heat is being released at some other sink. So it was TH here. So every time I am removing my boundary conditions. So initially the boundary condition was some source was there, high temperature source, then insulation came hypothetically, then third step some sink came hypothetically, and it was compressed So compression means volume decreased. Okay, so 3 to 4 with releasing some amount of heat. Okay, and in the last step again, insulation, he provided insulation hypothetically, again boundary condition changed, and it goes from 4 to 1. So in doing so, you whatever thing you will the area under this curve. So this is basically PV. So I told that. So okay. So this is the process that is happening. 1, 2 in PV diagram, 3 going from here to here, 4, and this one. So this, although I am doing some work, so this is your some work is happening by them, and this is some other work is happening, and by doing the negation, we'll get the actual work net by this shaded area. Okay, so this is your net actual work net that is you are getting, although you are providing some work here. So we will talk about more numerically what the efficiencies and all it has. We'll talk about later, but right now in this particular chapter we just will look at the thermodynamic limit that is associated with this type of Carnot cycle. Okay, so since this is the reverse, so everything was doing reversible. Okay, I didn't write it here, reversible, and this process, second process was adiabatic, since the insulation was there. So reversible adiabatic, adiabatic expansion. 3 is again reversible isothermal compression. Fourth is, fourth I'll write it here, reversible adiabatic compression. Okay, so whatever the efficiency you will get out of it, so efficiency of typical heat engines. So how heat engine is we have decided. So you have some taking heat from QH. Let's suppose this is your heat engine, and QL amount of heat you are losing to the T temperature and TH temperature, TL temperature to tell, and you are getting some work out of it, right? So your efficiency was 1 minus QL by QH. This is how we have written for heat engine. But for Carnot engine, we can write heat engine, comma, reversible process. So when I'm going to write my reversible process, this again will be this and this, but at this time you will get an heat engine reversible will be greater than an normal heat engine. We'll look into it in a while. Why? Okay, we'll always get higher efficiency as compared to its counterpart. Okay, if it is irreversible, it is doing. Okay, always in reversible manner, all the processes, if it is in reversible, you will get the maximum. I will not tell that it will go to 100%. No, it will not go, but you will get the maximum efficiency if it is done reversibly. Okay, this is what you should remember. Okay, so there are some, and there are some reverse Carnot cycles as well. So it will be done reversively, and it is done for refrigeration. This is your heat engine, and if you do this is actually clockwise. If you do anti-clockwise, you'll get the refrigeration refrigerator or heat pump thing, and you will get the reversible Carnot cycle for that case if you are doing reversibly everything, right? So whenever you see the keyword Carnot cycle, your mind should all abruptly connect to the reversibility. Everything has done with reversibly, so your efficiencies are high, maximum limit. Okay, there are some Carnot principles that this Sadi-Carnot has stated. First is the efficiency of an irreversible heat engine is always less than the efficiency of reversible one operating between two same reservoir. So this I'm talking about same reservoir. Even if I'm doing things at same reservoirs, TL and TH are same, but reversibly you will get maximum efficiency for reversible one. Second statement he did, the efficiency of all reversible heat engines operating between same two reservoir are the same. It means, let's first talk about this one. So this states, this is my statement one, irreversible and reversible heat engines. So your reversible heat engine will have higher efficiency. And now the second statement tells that your reversible engine, two reversible engines, these are your two reversible engines, these two, and if they work on same TH and same TL, your efficiencies will be always equal, no matter what, always equal, no matter what substance you are using or working fluid you are using. Okay, no matter whatever you are doing, two reversible engines with same reservoirs will have same efficiencies. Okay, but keep remembering things. I'm talking about reversible heat engines, not the irreversible. Irreversibility will have some different effects. Okay, next thing, next important thing I want to talk about is thermodynamic temperature scale. So Lord Kelvin, what he deduced at later stage, that I will also prove it now, that you have, let's suppose you have efficiency of thermal or heat engine is 1 minus QH by QL for normal heat engine, not reversible. So what he told, actually, for reversible heat engines, you can actually replace this QH and QL by, if things are reversible, you can replace this by temperature scales, absolute temperature scales, 1 minus TH by TL, and that is the temperature of your reservoir and the sink. Oh, I'm sorry, this was L and H, no? This is L and this is H. You can actually replace this. So in order to prove that, let's suppose we have a thermal reservoir at T1 temperature. There is a reversible heat engine A, reversible heat engine B. These are reversibles, and there is a reversible heat engine C, which is working at T1, T2, T2, T3, and T1, T3 respectively with these work outputs. So let's try to prove this statement. So for reversible, we have to prove that for reversible engines, these are this. So let's go by So we have seen that if you are working in reversible manner, it has given that no matter what working fluid are using, it depends upon your, if it is working on the same thermal reservoir TH and TL, so it will depend upon TH and TL only. So your efficiency of a reversible engine will be a function of some function of TL and TH. Okay, that is obvious. Okay, for this case, for case 1, let's suppose case 1 I am talking about, or in some sense we can write that QH by QL will be a function of, will be some function of TL and TH. This is obvious, right? Okay, in the first case, can we write that? Can we write this? So this is my Q1, this is my Q2. So Q2 by Q1 or Q1 by Q2 is basically a function of T1 and T2. In similar manner for Q2 and Q3, Q2 by Q3 will again be a function of T2 and T3. And for this third case, again, Q1 and Q3, the ratios of Q1 and Q3 will be a function of T1 and T3. So can we manipulate here something? We can actually multiply. We can multiply and we can get Q1 by Q2 times Q2 by Q3 F T1 T2 times F T2 T3, and this Q2 goes. So we can see this is nothing but Q1 by Q3. And we have seen that since we are working similarly, so Q1 and Q3 must be a function of T1 and T3. So this is a function of T1 and T3, but here we have deduced that it is a multiplication of function of T1, T2 and T2, T3. This is true only when your functions look something like this, some phi T1 by phi T2, and this function is phi T2 phi T3. Then only if you multiply, this goes away and this is a function of T2, T1 and T3. Okay, so now we can tell that now from here, this we can take out here. So QH by QL, you can actually write in terms of some function phi T1, or T1 is your higher temperature, right? And phi TL. So no need to go through this cumbersome thing, but you just have to remember this, that these quantity of heat flows that is happening is merely a function of the temperature of your sinks and source. That's all. It does always depend upon your sources. So Lord Kelvin has showed that some experiments that actually for reversible. So these things we have done for reversible things. So it has seen that for reversible thing, they come up with this particular ratio. The absolute temperatures of the source and sink, the ratio will give you the heat flows of QH and QH of reversible engine. So this is how they came up with this idea. Okay, and this is called thermodynamic temperature scale. The why this name thermodynamic temperature scale? Because you come up with some temperature scale, and you will tell that at this temperature scale your things are not depending on your substance. Okay, and you can actually write now your heat engines, reversible heat engines, the efficiency of your reversible heat engines with the temperature ratios. Okay, you can actually, so heat engine, normal heat engines or irreversible heat engines is written as 1 minus QL by QH, but for reversible heat engines, the efficiency can actually be written in terms of temperature scales. Okay, and this is a very strong thing to analyze any devices and also to look upon its maximum working efficiency. It's easier way, you can say. So this is one example. I will not do the example right away because I want to finish this chapter quickly. And similarly, with this concept, you will have not only the simple refrigerator, but you have a Carnot refrigerator and Carnot heat pump. Carnot heat pump comes into picture, and Carnot refrigerator is nothing but the COP of a refrigerator with reversible processes. You'll write in terms of temperature. So COP of normal refrigerators, we have seen that 1 minus QH by QL. I'm really sorry, minus 1, and this can be replaced by if it is the things are reversible in nature, you can actually write in terms of temperature scales for refrigerator and for pump also. Okay, and you'll see that these COPs are actually are reversible is greater than COP are irreversible. Okay, for heat pump also same goes thing, and for heat engines we have already seen that reversible efficiencies are higher than irreversible processes. The last thing I want to talk about is the quality of energy. You should also know this. Okay, so some researchers have done the experiment. What he did, he has taken the reversible heat engines. Just keep this in mind. Reversible heat engines. Okay, with two temperature reservoirs, TH and TL. So TL they kept constant, and TH they try to vary. 925, 800, 700, 500, 350, and they've seen that for reversible heat engines, the thermal efficiencies decreases as you decrease your temperature, higher temperature things. So if it is 900, you will get the maximum efficiency. If the same temperature has been lowered to 300 degrees, your efficiency decreases as compared to this. Okay, and this gives an insight of this, that higher your temperature is, higher your quality is. That is how, since beginning, I'm talking about the quality of the energy. So higher your temperature is, your thermal energy, higher your thermal energy is, higher your temperature is, higher is your quality of energy. Quality will dictate your efficiency. Okay, so higher the temperature of the thermal energy, higher is the quality. So higher quality means higher work can be produced at higher temperatures. Okay, so while designing your engines or every other things, you should keep in mind that yes, higher the temperature, higher would be your quality of the engine. But again, your design would be design of your car or car engine would be limited by your material. So let's suppose you go till 5,000. You cannot go till 5,000 temperature. Why? Your steel melts, right? Everything melts. Nothing will be in solid form. Okay, so obviously you will have some sort of give and take away kind of thing. You will have a trade-off between efficiency and obviously you have to take care of your materials also, through which those car engines are made up of. Okay, so this is kind of trade-off. Okay, so while designing, you should keep in mind all this also. Okay, and this actually concludes your second law of thermodynamics. And next I will talk about entropy and exergy. Okay, in the next maybe class and subsequent lectures. Okay, any question so far, or can we take up this one problem here and we can then leave? Okay, quickly, if you guys don't mind. Okay, so an inventor claims to develop a refrigerator that maintains the refrigerated space as 35 degree Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit maybe will take up 2 weeks. Okay, while operating in a room where the temperature is 75 degree Fahrenheit and that is the COP of 13.5. Is this claim reasonable? Who will tell? So what you have to do, so you have a COP. Okay, COP of refrigerator, you will get things from. So okay, so for what no matter what you do, COP of reversible thing will be maximum, right? So you will actually deduce COP of refrigeration for reversible process, and that is your we have already seen that QH TH by TL minus 1. So it will give you some number. Let's suppose this number is 12. I don't know, maybe some 12 or 10. Okay, it comes out to be 12. And you say that you can see that it is claiming to be 13.5. Now this claim is not reasonable. Why? No matter what you do, you cannot get the COP greater than your reversible thing, right? And reversible, we have gone seen that it's 12 only, and it is claiming 13.5. So these kind of questions you may expect from your in your examination, in your interviews and all. Okay. Yes, that's it from my side. So any question? Have you guys slept?
No, sir.
Okay. Fine then. I'll take the attendance now.